Hey, we'll try this one more time. This is the last half of chapter 8, starting on page 56, in the middle. Nibbling on a macaroon, she stacked the used coffee cups on a tray. If only that Pulaski person had let her study the will. That's where the real clues were, buried among the veiled threats and pompous promises, the slogans and silliness in that hodgepodge of a will. In his will, Sam Westing implied, he did not state, he implied that 1, he was murdered. 2, the murderer was one of the heirs. 3, he alone knew the name of the murderer. And 4, the name of the murderer was the answer to the game. The game. A tricky, divisive Westing game. No matter how much fear and suspicion he instilled in the players, Sam Westing knew that greed would keep them playing the game until the murderer was captured and punished. Sam Westing was not murdered, but one of his heirs was guilty. Guilty of some offense against a relentless man, and that heir was in danger. From his grave, Westing would stalk his enemy, and through his heirs, he would wreak his revenge. Which one? Which heir was the target of Westing's vindictiveness? In the name of justice, she would have to find Westing's victim before the others did. She would have to learn everything she could about each one of the heirs, who they were and how did their lives touch Westing's, these 16 strangers whose only connection with one another was Sunset Towers. Sunset Towers. She'd start from there. Good, the telephones were working again. The number she dialed was answered on the first ring. Hi there, this is a recording of yours truly, Barney Northrop. I'm at your service, as soon as I get back in my office, that is. Just sing out your problem to old Barney here when you hear the beep. Beep. J.J. Ford hung up without singing out her problem to old Barney. He, too, could be involved in Westing's plot. The newspaper. She would try the newspaper. Surely someone was snowbound there. After 8 rings, a live voice answered. We usually don't supply that kind of information over the phone, but since it's you, Judge Ford, I'll be happy to oblige. Just spell out the names and I'll call back if I find anything. Thank you. I'd appreciate that. It was a beginning. Sam Westing was dead, but maybe, just once, she could beat him at his own game, his last game. Having found what she wanted in Turtle's desk, Angela returned to her frilly bedroom where Sidel Pulaski, glasses low on her nose, was perched on a ruffled stool at the vanity table, smearing blue eyeshadow on her eyelids. First, we tackle our own clues, the secretary said, frowning at the result in the threefold mirror. Unlucky from the day she was born, she now had a beautiful and well-loved partner. There was always the chance that they alone had been given the answer. She unsealed the envelope and held it out to Angela. Take one. Angela removed the first clue. Good. Now it was Sidel's turn. Glory be! She exclaimed, thinking she had the name of a murderer. Her thumb was covering the letter D, and the word was hood. Angela's turn. The third clue was from. Sidel's turn. The fourth clue was spacious. The fifth and last clue was... Angela uttered a low moan. Her hand shook as she passed the paper to her partner. The fifth and last clue was Grace. Grace, that's your mother's name, isn't it? Sidel said. Well, don't worry. That clue doesn't mean your mother is the murderer. The will says it's not what you have, it's what you don't have that counts. The secretary had not yet transcribed the shorthand, but she had read it through several times before hiding the notebook in a safe place. By the way, are you really related to Mr. Westing? Angela shrugged. Sidel assumed that meant no and turned to the clues. Good Grace from Hood Spacious. The only thing I can figure from these clues is good gracious from hood space. As soon as the parking lot is shoveled out, we'll peek under the hoods of all the cars. A map or more clues might be written there. Maybe even the murder weapon. Now let's hear about the other clues. Angela reported on the clues gathered in the game room and during the day's comings and goings. King, Queen. Otis Amber said King Otis and Queen Crow. Purple waves. Mother switched 2 clues around when Sandy mentioned those words. On or no. Doug and Theo could not decide whether that clue was right side up or upside down. Grains. Chris Theodorakis thinks that clue refers to Otis Amber. You know, grains, oats. MT. Angela showed her partner the crumpled scrap of paper she'd picked up along with Sidel's dropped crutch during Flora Baumbach's tea party. 500 shares MT at $6 equals $3,000. Broker's commission equals 90 equals $3,090. I checked Turtle's diary. She's not following any stock with a symbol like MT, so it must be one of her clues. MT could stand for either mountain or empty. Excellent, Sidel Pulaski remarked. Her partner was beautiful, but not dumb. Read all the clues together now. Good hood from spacious grace, king, queen, purple waves, on, no, grains, mountain, empty. Sidel was disappointed. It's not what you have, it's what you don't have that counts. And what we don't have is a verb. Nothing makes sense without a verb. What about the judge? Judge Ford thought her clues were an insult, and she said something about playing a pawn in Westing's game. And she had a clipping of the obituary on her desk. This obituary. Angela handed Sidel the newspaper taken from Turtle's drawer. What's that? It was a knock on the front door. It was footsteps in the living room. It was Theo. Anyone for a game of chess? He asked, leaning through the bedroom doorway. No, thank you, Sidel replied, looking very busy. Theo smiled shyly at Angela and left. Sidel read the obituary in Turtle's newspaper. The words $200 million were underlined, but she found a more interesting item. Sam Westing was a master at chess. No wonder Theo's so interested. Do you know anything about the game, Angela? A little, she replied, slowly, putting the pieces in order. The judge said she's a pawn, and Otis Amber says he's the king. Crow's the queen. Oh, well, it's probably just a coincidence. We can't leave any stone unturned, Sidel insisted. As the will says, object of the game to win. What did you say? Object of the game to win. How about object of the game twin? Maybe the murderer is a twin. Twin? Sidel liked that. The only problem would be getting the murderer to admit that he or she is a twin. Let's get back to my apartment. It's time I transcribed those notes. Angela helped the invalid to her feet and nervously peered in both directions before stepping into the hallway. Sidel chuckled at her timidity. There's nothing to be scared of, Angela. Westing was murdered for his money, and we're not rich yet. We won't be rich enough to be murdered until we find the name, and by the time we get the money from the estate, the murderer will be locked up in jail. In spite of the impeccable logic, Angela looked back over her shoulder several times on the way to 3C. Strange. Sidel stood before her open apartment door. She'd slammed it shut on leaving, but had not locked the deadbolt. After all, not even a burglar could get into a snowbound building, unless... Angela, too frightened to notice that Sidel ran through the apartment with her crutch in the air, found her partner in the bathroom, frantically tossing soiled towels from the hamper. Sidel Pulaski stared at the bare wicker bottom, then sank to the rim of the bathtub, shaking her head in disbelief. Someone in Sunset Towers had stolen the shorthand notebook. The end of chapter 8. Thanks, guys.